It's Wednesday, April 20th. Welcome to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski with my co-host, Josh Fisher. Josh, we have a lot to talk about today.
We do. Quinnipiac University released their latest poll on the Connecticut primary, which is less than a week away today, and it matches similar to what we saw happen in New York yesterday. Hillary and Trump are atop both their respective parties, but we're going to take a deeper look at that as we move on today.
All right, and we're also going to be talking with Trumbull Times editor Steve Coulter on a Saturday Night Live skit that has led to some local backlash.
Yeah, and we have a few other state stories to discuss, and Doug Smith, our editorial cartoonist, joins us to take his humorous look at the news.
Yeah. And later on, we'll be playing an interview with a food policy coordinator for the Humane Society of the United States on a campaign that's trying to get people to eat less meat and animal products. It's even reached some Connecticut schools. But first, as I said, we're joined today by Trumbull Times editor Steve Coulter. He's also the host of HAN Arts and Leisure. So, Steve, happy to have you.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
So, Steve, this is an interesting story that kind of started developing Sunday morning after a lot of folks saw this SNL skit called Heroin AM. Tell us a little bit about the skit.
So the skit is kind of a parody on NyQuil or, AM or PM, no matter what you're taking it. And so it's parents that want to kind of cut loose and have a good time and by taking heroin, basically, to deal with their problems. And so you have various cast members who are playing, a soccer coach. You have Julia Dreyfus, who's playing a bus driver, and a couple other parents that want to kind of break loose. And I think her line is like, I take this to be able to handle this little guy,
right? And
that's met with laughter. Right. And then what really got the controversy brewing is that image right there of the gummy bear being lit and then injected into
and saying, "Oh yeah," as it's melting down.
It's not just a gummy bear; it's a Kool-Aid gummy bear.
It's a cool gummy bear, right?
And so that really upset T. Doonan, who runs Heroin Kill CT, which is a local group based out of Trumbull. She's a Trumbull resident whose son passed away 2 years ago. And so that image in particular really caught her and upset her.
Right. And so I know you talked with her about this, and she's been very active in town and in the state, kind of, combating the growing heroin epidemic.
Right. She was just in Hartford yesterday, I think she told me. So it's something that she does, not just, here and there. She does it all the time.
And we can't underestimate, the growing epidemic. As she said when you talked to her, the heroin epidemic has just claimed the lives of 4 more Connecticut kids in the last 3 days. So we know this is a growing problem. We've talked about it a lot. But why do you think, kind of this humorous look at it really bothered her? What was it about it that kind of upset her? What message does she think it's sending?
I think she thought it normalized it and kind of trivialized the issue. And she thought that people that are watching that are not necessarily, young, but like in, my age, 25, are going to look at it and take it as kind of a comedic, light issue where it's not, and a lot of people are dying. And she, she was saying back in the Belushi days, people laughed at that kind of stuff, but maybe now the time to laugh at, drug use and drug over abuse it's over the time to make light of it. She compared it to laughing at military funerals, so she takes it very seriously, and this is not something that she thinks should be taken lightly or trivialized and normalized in depictions like the one that was given on Saturday night.
But is that, I always find it weird when someone says, it's like, I find this funny, but I don't think some people will get it. Like saying that, other people are dumb and won't understand that there's dark humor behind this.
Well, she actually thought that it was funny, the whole rip-off of, that the big pharma has a cure to everything, that there's a pill for every single thing. If you're a bored housewife, here's a pill. If you're an overachieving school student, here's a pill. Here's a drug to get you by all of your problems in life. But I think the connection between that and heroin is where she thinks there's going to be kind of a gap of people understanding what's actually the dark humor behind it.
And we should mention that in the fake commercial, it's a mix of heroin and cocaine and I think caffeine, which was the part that made it heroin AM.
Yes, yeah.
But we do want to say, and as you wrote in your story, so she and a Massachusetts mother kind of worked together on starting a petition.
Yeah, the petition started out of Massachusetts. It's got, I think, over 75,000 signatures now. It's kind of changing. It's hard.
What are they asking petition.
I did it. You just put your email address and your name.
But what are they? What's the point
are
of the
they
petition?
asking NBC to?
Right. So her goal is, she actually told me that she doesn't want them to issue a formal apology and doesn't think they will because it's freedom of speech and they're entitled to do whatever they want with their show. However, they're hoping that all the petitions and all the signatures kind of ignite and motivate the cast members to do maybe a 1 minute. In regards to last week's skit, and they present, helpline, telephone numbers for help centers, and also present some of the facts of what's going on in America. Because I agree with what you're saying, that I think people are smart enough to see the dark comedy in it.
Yeah.
Right.
However, I think what people don't realize, or not everybody realizes, is how deathly this is. And so a cast member presenting the actual, raw data in a quick, 1 minute segment.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think, heroin, obviously, we have an epidemic. We've talked about it extensively on this show and throughout our newspapers but like one SNL is supposed to be funny, and it was nice that they actually did something funny because they're not always funny every week.
That's
so
true.
that was nice.
Recently.
And you know what, like I understand, like, obviously my heart goes out to this woman. She lost her son to heroin. That's absolutely terrible. I can't imagine what that's like. But you know what, like when I turn on SNL, I want to laugh. I don't want to be given a message about.
You don't want that 1 minute reminder.
No, who cares? Like seriously, who cares? Like, you know what? If like we are bombarded being told every day of the week that heroin is bad and that there's an epidemic in this nation with heroin, which is absolutely terrible. But when I turn on SNL, I want to laugh, and they have the right to make fun of whatever they want. If people don't like it, they don't have to watch it.
I agree with that. I will say what I think is actually interesting about this ad that I think could be a good thing is that it's not showing these heroin AM users as people in alleys shooting up heroin, because we know now that the heroin epidemic is across all demographics.
She actually appreciated that part of it too.
That it's
highlighting the house
saying,
moms.
In that way, it's kind of getting the message out there to maybe people who haven't heard anything about heroin. Like, are people really doing it this much? Like, and I do think that the nice thing about comedy and Saturday Night Live is we can laugh at some of the terrible things that are going on in a different way. And this is a horrible thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think as much as we can get information out there, as you said, what they're asking for, to have maybe helplines and information put out there, I think that's a good thing. It's always good to remind people of that. So maybe that is something that Saturday Night Live wants to consider. I think that's a fair question.
I'm just sick of people being offended. Everyone's offended by everything now. There's a way you can take anything that happens and you can look at it and say, I'm offended by this because it touched me personally. But it also takes a lot more courage to go out and, I think, to make a joke about heroin like this in this day and age we have, and have some humor involved in it. And you know what? People understand it's a joke. You're watching SNL. Before that commercial, there was a thing about I watched some of this week's episode, and they had a joke about the Democratic debate between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Did I seriously think that was the actual Hillary Clinton and the actual Bernie Sanders having a real debate? And they also had questions from the audience, which featured Elaine Bennis, the character from Seinfeld, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and the Rachel character from Friends out there. Did I really think that those characters from the 90s had come back to current life? I mean, like, it just is, we're all so offended by everything in this world right now.
Put it in the context of Saturday Night Live. It's definitely...
It wasn't, it wasn't on, like, Saturday morning cartoons.
But I do appreciate, I appreciate her right to speak out on this, because she is in this every day. As you said, she's at Hartford every day. She's on a task force. She started Heroin Kills CT. And so I appreciate her being out there and really following this. In fact, I see really closely that she follows what's happening in the state, and it is shocking to see the number of people that are dying.
Of course it is, but this is dumb. I got to say that this is, I understand, but this is a stupid waste of time to focus on a silly commercial, fake commercial on a parody show about this, and to take it seriously when you're actually, I just think this takes away from what is seriously going on. And I don't know. I'm just tired of all these victims being offended by every little thing.
As I said, I think in some ways, I think the commercial actually raises some awareness. But Steve, I think you did a great job, talking to Teresa Doonan about it. And you're covering a story that, there's been stories on CNN and the Washington Post, and it's interesting that it kind of reached this level with one of our advocates locally. So.
Yeah, she said it was one of the better stories she's read on the whole issue.
Oh, cool.
Great.
Well, that's
great
good.
Job, Steve. And thank you so much. So if you want to read that full story, it is at TrumbullTimes.com. Steve, great job, and thank you so much.
And across all of our websites.
And on all of our websites,
I shared it with everybody.
But you wrote it, so you got to take some credit
of course.
there.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Steve.
Well, thank you so
for having
much. Josh, we are going to take a break right now. And when we
Okay,
come back,
cool.
we are going to talk
go
about
get some
some
gummy bears.
other stories we are following this week. Coming up on CT Pulse after this.
It's time to come back to hometown banking, where people are taken into account, not just balances. Where community comes first. A place where there's more than one kind of interest. Where automation will never replace consideration. Where they not only know your name, they know your dog's name too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well. Bank smart. Bank local. Bank well.
Alberto Londano Professional Painting, Wallpapering, and Carpentry has been serving Fairfield County for over 20 years. Based in Norwalk, Alberto takes pride in his work by offering you only the best quality service and products. Call Alberto today to get a free estimate and be one step closer to a new and exciting home makeover. 203-866-9635.
Join the HAN Network and Make-A-Wish Connecticut to help make travel wishes come true for local kids with life-threatening medical conditions. Donate your unused airline miles to the HAN Network Wishes in Flight campaign. Over 70% of wishes granted involve travel, and your unused airline miles can help make kids' dreams become a reality. Plus, once you donate your miles to Make-A-Wish, they will never expire. Donate your unused miles and help the HAN Network share the power of a wish.
I'm Kate Czaplinski. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN Network.
You are watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. Nearly 500,000 viewers enjoyed our broadcasts in the first 5 months. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Jessica Murrin, Advertising Director, at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
And we're back on this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. Time to talk about the Quinnipiac poll that came out today, Josh. I know you were keeping an eye out for this.
Yes, it was so exciting.
You
when
were
I woke up this
excited, I
morning
know.
and saw it in my inbox.
You
I was
live for this stuff.
I did. Well, it's fun. And, as tradition, the Quinnipiac University up in Hamden, they poll a lot of major states around, but Connecticut always do because it's their home state, and they usually release a poll, as you see right here. It usually comes out that Wednesday before Connecticut votes. So Hillary Clinton, no surprise really here, I think, in Connecticut that she is leading Bernie Sanders. You have pretty much the entire congressional delegation in the state for Hillary. Jim Himes just sent out a tweet before we went on air about how great it is that New York did their job. It's Connecticut's turn to do their job next week. Of course, she had a convincing win in New York State's primary yesterday. On the Republican side, we talked about this extensively last week when we focused on John Kasich's candidacy. Trump with the 48% lead, 20-point lead over Kasich. Cruz a distant third place. And again, none of that is a surprise. You look at, and as Schwartz, who oversees the polls, points out in the release today, that Connecticut Republicans, you might think that, Connecticut is kind of a moderate state, so John Kasich would be perfect.
Right.
But the primary voters aren't moderate. The primary voters are, it's like one Connecticut politician I spoke to privately last week noted that, once you get past the river and into eastern Connecticut, that's pretty much, gun-carrying, wacko, right-wing Republicans who are out there. That might not be a direct quote, but I'm paraphrasing him or her. But you look at 2 years ago in the primary, Republicans went with Tom Foley over John McKinney, who probably would have destroyed Dan Malloy in the general election, but they went with the rich Greenwich Republican. 2 years before that, Linda McMahon Another rich Greenwich Republican beat Chris Shays, who probably would have given Chris Murphy a good run for his money in the general election for U.S. Senate. 2 years before that, Foley beat Mike Fedeli, running for governor, and then lost to Dan Malloy by 5,000 votes. And Linda McMahon beat Rob Simmons, who did not campaign that hard after he lost at the convention. But so Connecticut Republicans have a long history of making terrible choices, which is part of the reason why we're in the situation that we are today, where Dan Malloy is one of the most unpopular governors in America, but is in the middle of his second term, because the Republicans make terrible choices in Connecticut of who they nominate and who they run, and it's gone this little, the pragmatic class of Connecticut Republicans, most of whom come from Fairfield County and are easily elected in the small towns that we cover, but don't have statewide appeal. You saw, Tim Herbst, who ran a very good campaign against Denise Napier for state treasurer last year, or 2 years ago now. 2 years ago, yep. Came narrow. He lost. He was close,
yeah,
but it's so hard.
It couldn't be decided until the next day. Yeah, that's how close
But
it
it
was.
still is so hard for a Republican, particularly, the National Party has it up against the Republicans in the state anyway. But then you also have the voting class, the primary class that votes and doesn't, they just go with. So Donald Trump is. Yes.
So as someone that follows this, were you surprised by any of the Q poll?
No, I mean, we looked at another poll last week. It's nice to see Kasich is kind of moving up.
Yeah.
But if Trump, as you see, he's at 48% there. If he wins 50% plus one vote in this state, he gets all 25 of the pledged delegates. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't win that, if he stays at that 48%, then he would get the 10 delegates that are out there, the at-large delegates, but then each congressional district, all 5 congressional districts have 3 delegates each, and those are broken up based on the vote. Mm-hmm. But if you, you might say Kasich might have a chance down here in the 4th district, where we are right now, but I still, Kasich might pick up a couple delegates. But you saw Ted Cruz got knocked out. He can no longer mathematically get enough delegates, which was expected, but in New York yesterday confirmed it. He got no delegates in New York. Kasich got, I think 5, and Trump got the other 90 in the state. But so Trump is the only one who has a mathematical possibility of getting the 1,237 delegates before the convention in Cleveland this summer. And he's back on track to get that. So it's kind of sad too, Kate, because if we don't have a contested convention this summer, I mean, I took that entire week of vacation off for no reason.
Oh boy, what will you do with yourself?
I don't know.
Well, if you are having trouble, if you're a registered Republican and you're having trouble deciding, just an interesting event coming up, Josh, that I saw on the Darien Times website, which the Republican town committees of Darien and Norwalk are hosting a presidential candidate forum this Saturday, April 23rd, at the Darien Library Auditorium. This starts at 9:30 in the morning, and they have someone speaking on behalf of each candidate. So former Connecticut Congressman Chris Shays will speak for Governor John Kasich, former Greenwich RTC Chair Jim Campbell will speak for Donald Trump, and Bob McGuffey will speak in favor of Senator Ted Cruz. So you just have to register in advance. It's free, but you can find out more at DarienTimes.com.
Interesting. It's nice
idea.
to see those little things.
They
have those guys going around. Nice to see that the Darien Republican Town Committee remembers who Chris Shays is, because they certainly forgot about that when Linda McMahon ran for office.
He's bitter about that.
He's only a Darien native who did a lot for that town, and I'm not bitter about it. I just think it's just sad. It's like this train wreck we continue to watch. There used to be this was a state that was full of some pragmatic people, and now the government class is all in control. And you see we have these rising deficits. The state has to lay off these workers. The educational sharing has been lost. For all the Republican towns are losing their money from the state.
Right.
Too.
They happen to be the wealthiest. Yeah.
Yes, but then the Republicans continue to make terrible decisions, and I refuse to blame the Democratic Party. It's the Democratic Party is doing what the Democratic Party does. They're spending money, they're expanding government, and they're that's what they're for. So we shouldn't be mad that the Democrats are doing what they're supposed to do. People should be mad that the Republicans continue to put up absolutely terrible candidates to run for office. But you know what's going to be exciting next week, Kate? For the first time in 4 years, there's a Republican primary in Connecticut with no Greenwich millionaire on the ballot. Oh, wow. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
I don't know who not to vote for.
Well, you mentioned education cost sharing. Well, Governor Daniel Malloy has proposed cutting that. So he's proposed, he plans on significantly reducing the education cost-sharing grant in Connecticut. The 28 most affluent districts in the state stand to lose the grant entirely, while the 30 lowest performing school districts would see no cuts at all, and all the districts in between those would lose a portion of their grant money. So for districts like New Canaan and Darien, they could lose $1.5 million. I know the Weston superintendent sent out a letter recently talking about their cut, which I believe is somewhere around $800,000 that they're concerned about losing, and just kind of mentioning, we might have to increase taxes might go up, reduction in education or town spending might have to be what we do. So I know a lot of towns are concerned about that. We hope to get a guest on soon to talk more about that, because I know that's going to be a big deal for some of the towns.
And what's too bad about this too is it's the state is just pushing the tax burden again on the wealthier towns in the state, which I understand that's, it's how America works. They end up, your income taxes, you're going to get more money from income taxes in the towns like the Dariens, the New Canaans, the Ridgefields, the Wiltons. But these are the towns that also help keep Hartford afloat, help keep New Britain afloat, help keep Bridgeport afloat, but they're now, once again, everyone's taxes are going up. And what's that going to do? It's going to just push out the wealthy people who the state, lives off of out of the state, because there's less and less of a reason to live and work in Connecticut every year because of the policies of Dan Malloy and the majority party in Hartford. And I just think that's too bad. And all of this was presented a way to help combat this 6 years ago when John McKinney was the head of the Senate, of the Republican Party in the Senate, and Larry Cafaro was head of the Republican Party, the minority party in the House. But Malloy and the Democrats ignored all of that. Remember there was that famous photo. Larry Cafaro, I believe, is speaking and talking about his budget proposal, and then you could see it was on the front page of the Hartford Courant, a Democratic legislator playing solitaire on his computer. So I just think, and Dan Malloy's more focused on banning travel to states that, don't agree with him politically and all these sorts of things, when this state is falling apart. And it's just continuing to fall apart. And now there's a showdown between Sharkey, the Speaker of the House, and Malloy over, the budget. And what's happening now? Nothing else is getting done in Hartford, as usual. So they're going to rush through everything at the end. We're going to get bills that people didn't read properly. And the state will continue to be a mess. But you know what? If Hillary Clinton's elected president, then Dan Malloy can go to Washington with her.
You've said that. That's
Governor Wyman.
Well, just talking about stuff that's happening in Hartford, we do want to give a quick update on the medical marijuana bill that would allow for pediatric use, which we've had guests on to talk about their personal experience with that. There's been a lot of support around it this year. Well, House Bill 5450 is likely to go to the House today for a vote. So we'll have to follow that and see what happens.
If they can get around to voting for it.
That's true. There might be some other stuff going on. And of course, problems at the DMV this week. We
how
have to
hilarious
mention,
is this?
This started yesterday. They had some outages of their computer system, and now they're advising people today to delay their visits. They're saying go to AAA if you need a new ID, and if you need, you can get an extension on some of the other services that you might need if AAA can't cover those.
Is it true that they upgraded their computer system to Windows Vista? Was a problem? Because we closed down the DMV for what was it, a week or two, Eric, and then say, to upgrade the computer systems, make it easy. But they said, we're going to close down for a week, but stay away for a month because it's going to be very hard with this fancy new computer system that 3M made, as Tony Wong liked to point it out when we had the state senator here. But then stay away, and now it's like breaking
with
again.
With the contract that Jody Rell made, though.
Of course. Well, that's
that was
true.
made by Bob
That's
Duff,
true.
so we have to put in both those points.
That is a fair point. But also, we all know that Jody Rell mailed in the last 3 years of her full term as governor, and she couldn't wait to get out of there.
Oh, yeah.
But
Josh is fired up today, guys.
Well, it's all just a mess. I'm all sad that we might not have a contested convention.
I know. Well, you'll be excited to know there is a little political humor in Doug Smith's cartoons this week.
So I don't just have to watch season 7 or season 6 of The West Wing to get.
But before we get to that, I did a fun interview for Coffee Break. We ran it first on Monday. We're going to run it again. It's called a Meatless Monday campaign.
What's fun about that, Kate?
Well, here's the thing. So the Humane Society of the United States is pushing for this campaign of people to just 1 day a week give up animal products, meat, things like that, because they say there could be a really very real impact on your health and also the environment. And this has been pushed in some of our local schools by the food policy coordinator, Katie Scott, that we spoke with. So let's check that out.
Cool.
Welcome back to Coffee Break. I'm Kate Czaplinski. This is the HAN Network, and today we're talking about something you may have heard of before. It's gaining some popularity and some traction for different reasons. And I'm joined by Katie Scott, who is the Food Policy Coordinator for the Humane Society of the United States, the New England division actually based in Milford, right, Katie?
That's correct.
And we're talking about Meatless Mondays.
That's right.
Which has been around for a long time.
Correct.
There's some history there.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you've already heard about it. Basically, people think that Meatless Monday maybe just popped up here and there, but the real story is that Meatless Monday started by the U.S. government. World War I, World War II, we needed to conserve resources for troops here to send abroad, so we had that going on. Then, in fact, in 2003, Johns Hopkins School of Public Health brought it back to fight a war of a different kind. This time it was on chronic preventable diseases.
And so tell us how the Humane Society got involved in it.
Love the question. So the Humane Society of the United States is the largest animal welfare organization globally, and we decided that we want to take care of all animals, including people. One of the best ways to do that is to decrease our meat intake. That is a great way to improve our health and to prevent disease.
And you've been working with a lot of area schools, is that right?
That's correct. So you may have heard West Hartford just recently decided to go meatless, but there have been a number of schools that have been doing it for years. So there's Berlin High School, there's Ashford, and then more recently there's Old Saybrook School District.
And I know we have some interesting information that you brought along with
Yeah.
us. What are the benefits of going meatless 1 day a week?
Absolutely, so I'm glad you asked. Nutrition experts worldwide basically advise us to increase our take of plant-based food while cutting back on saturated animal fats. So that includes meat, dairy, and egg products. The great thing about it is that you can actually still get the same amount of protein while reducing your risk of heart disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, and also improving your weight management. The American Heart Association, the World Health Organization, and the U.S. Dietary Guidelines are just one of a many number of organizations that actually support shifting vegetables to the center of the plate.
That's right. And what I love about this is it's manageable, okay?
Yes.
It's 1 day a week, because there's many people that can't imagine completely losing meat from their diet.
Right, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that if you just take one step at a time, you can make really big impacts. So you may not know, but one of the leading contributions to climate change is actually animal agriculture. And the Environmental Defense Fund has said that if every American just skipped one meal of chicken, and that's just one meal per week, it would be as if we took off 500,000 cars from the U.S. roads.
Wow. So it's not just health, it's environmental.
Exactly, and we look at it as a fact of improving your health, supporting environmental sustainability, and reducing our reliance on factory farms.
Right. And I think one of the biggest obstacles to this, obviously, is, okay, what do I eat other than cheese pizza when I don't want to have meat? So we're talking today about some recipe ideas that you brought. And,
Yes.
and what are we talking about?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you mentioned that, Kate, because really, honestly, incorporating more plant-based foods is fun, easy, and it's totally a thing that you can save money doing, which is why I brought in this 2-bean protein-packed chili. So I'll kind of walk you through what's in it and then show you a little bit more about how much protein is there. So first we've got things like kidney beans, we've got black beans, we've got tomato sauce.
And store brands, too.
Absolutely.
So expensive.
Exactly. You can use olive oil to cook with, and you've got just my favorite veggies are mixed red, green, and yellow peppers. Corn and onions. But the great thing about vegetarian chili is that you can throw in anything. Right. Decide if you want to put in a whole mess of tomatoes. Decide if you want to put in something strange like broccoli. It's really what is to your taste. Now the interesting thing that I used here is actually these Boca veggie ground crumbles. And what's really cool is that this is pretty much the exact same price as buying ground beef. So let's say you chose to make it just as it's laid out here. You would actually be probably spending around $13. So for a family of 4, about $3.25. If you removed these crumbles, you would be probably taking away $1 for each person. So you're really only spending $2 per person. And I love it because the way that I look at it here is how much protein is packed into this meal. It's about 36 grams. Now they say that on average, depending on gender and a few other things, you want to get about 50 to 80 grams a day. So this is just one way to get a really big kick of that protein.
Wow, and a lot of that protein's coming from the beans, right?
Exactly.
Which we are hearing more and more in areas where people live the longest. There is a heavy bean diet there.
Yes, it's fantastic. And what's really interesting is that people don't realize that their protein comes from a number of sources. So if you decide that, hey, I'm not such a bean fan, eat avocados. I hear that it's about 10 grams of protein you can get from that. So really, protein is not so much the question, it's really where do you get your fiber, which is why beans, again, are such a high product to eat.
That's great. And I know we have a finished recipe here. So you whipped this up. How long did it take you to whip it up?
Honestly, maybe like cook time 35 minutes. Yeah.
So not bad.
Absolutely.
And we do have a high school intern, Oxford High School,
Yes.
Nicole Di Matteo. I said it right, Nicole, right? And Nicole has the finished product over there that she's going to just garnish a bit for us with some sour cream and bring it over. Oh, and what's she putting on top of it?
She's putting parsley flakes. So something else I want to point out, which is fantastic, is that this is actually a dairy-free sour cream.
Oh,
I would love to hear your feedback on it, but it also adds a little bit of protein in there too.
Thank you, Nicole.
And of course, if you want to have chips or cornbread, it's always an easy side.
Oh, yes. Cornbread especially can be very easy and inexpensive to make, too.
Exactly, and that's the whole point.
All right, I'm going to take a big bite. I'm really excited about this. That's really good.
All day, all night.
And I can't believe that's a dairy-free sour cream.
It is, right? You can't taste the difference.
Where do you find it?
It's in Stop and Shop. Just look in your healthy food frozen section. Honestly, the more that you just go down that rabbit hole, you'll find an array of products that you can eat. Yes.
And so what do you recommend for people looking for some other recipes? And
Yeah,
ideas?
absolutely. So the thing I would first recommend is to realize that the Humane Society of the United States really talks about the 3 R's. So reducing your meat consumption, refining your diet to avoid any sort of products that come from conventional factory farms, and then replacing anything that you have that is a meat with a non-meat alternative. But if you want to learn more, go to humanesociety.org/Meatless Monday. And what's great, and I would encourage you to do this, Kate, is to sign up for weekly emails that'll be dropped into your inbox on every Monday.
Well, Katie, thank you so much. This has been so informative, and this is delicious. It really is. I'm going to make this. So thank you so much for joining us. Nicole, thank you. And that is going to do it. We will be back with more Coffee Break after this.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Chop off your knives to be sharpened. Grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
At the Sylvan Learning Center of Darien, experienced teachers and personalized academic support equals superior results. Our certified teachers uncover skill gaps, address specific needs, and help students realize greater academic success and increased confidence. We're enrolling now. Individualized after-school tutoring in reading, math, history, elementary math, algebra, geometry, calculus, high school science, and study skills. For a free consultation, call 203-655-3276 or email gmcsylvan@gmail.com. For over 25 years, Mike Cizik Painting and Wallpapering has been the name to know for residential and commercial properties in Fairfield County. He uses only the top brands, including Benjamin Moore, for impeccable preparation and lasting quality. Call Mike now and receive $500 off any job over $7,000. Mike is currently accepting reservations for spring, so call him today at 203-770-8869 or 203-972-3310. For your custom painting, finishing, and staining needs, it's Mike Cizik.
Can't wait for it to get warmer so you can start fishing again? Get over to the Dock Shop, where they have the latest in fishing tackle, marine electronics, boating supplies, and more. But remember, the Dock Shop isn't your average tackle shop. You'll also find the finest selection of nautical apparel, jewelry, home decor, and gifts in New England. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com. I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN Network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
All right, this week, Doug Smith is ruining couples' relationships, drawing conclusions in the sky. Doug Smith, welcome. Our editorial cartoonist joins us this week to take a look at his cartoons, his take on the news. Let's check out what we have coming up first.
Oh, no. All right,
That's
Doug,
all right,
Doug,
just do
quick, draw one for us.
just go through them. All right, now we like this one because we were just talking about this. Hartford taking from Fairfield County, which is a little beat up.
They've seen us as their personal piggy bank, I guess, for years, is the general feeling down here.
Yes.
So this
Again and
is this talking about kind of the education cost sharing and some
Exactly,
of the cuts?
you know, cutting the budgets and everything, and I guess their overall concern. This was for Darien, although a lot of people are going to use it.
Right.
But it's just kind of like, well, you can afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All right, tell us about this one. A little humor here.
Oh, that's in I believe that's in Easton, the Wetlands Park. It needs to be revamped. They have those little elevated like paths made out of wood you can walk through there, and they're falling apart. So.
Got mixed up with Jurassic Park.
Exactly.
And I love this one too because every time I hear Devil's Den, this is what I think of. It's so amazing. So some hikes to Devil's Den coming up, and I always wondered how they came up with the name. Love that one. And tell us about this one.
This is in for the Ledger. We talked about this a few weeks ago. The Connecticut Valley Estates,
right?
And they're being the billing for their sewage and the water is like astronomical, far more than anyone else is paying, and they don't think it's fair. So this is their alternative, I guess.
And what's this one about?
This is in Trumbull.
Right.
Anyone who's ever been on Route 25 and Route 111, when you get to the intersection there, Route 25 turns from 2 lanes down to 1, and it's everyone in the left lane seems to drive like a madman to get ahead of everybody.
Yep.
I guess that's the same way anywhere when lanes taper into 1 lane, but
Yep. No, it is.
looking for
That
input on
area. That area is rough, and I know there's a lot of people upset wanting to make some improvements there. So. And what about this one?
This is in Milford. They have the dispensary that opened up a few weeks ago, and people are up in arms about it. Just
oh my gosh, I love this. So this guy is saying, "Oh my God, it's going to cause a massive crime wave.
Everyone's going
People
to
are
be
become
addicted. It's going to lead to recreational marijuana."
And the people inside the dispensary. I guess you could say that pot does cause paranoia. That's a good. I love that one, Doug. Very nice.
Today is 420 too. It's the National Pot Holiday.
Hey.
So
hey, who knew? I didn't know that.
Let's go down to Milford.
Light up, man.
All right, caffeine and carburetors. I like this. This was an event in New Canaan over the weekend.
Just started up last weekend.
Decaffeinated and hybrids. That's the alternative?
Good. Yep.
I like that.
Which somebody who owns a hybrid will probably complain and say, hey, mine's pretty zippy.
And I like caffeine. All right, what's this one about?
In Ridgefield, they want to get a community organized to fix up some of the graveyards, which are overgrown with weeds. So we have a little zombie action going on here.
I love that. And some more humor, burial ground humor.
Yep.
This is for Shelton, I believe, right?
Yeah, we were talking about the condos on Long Hill 2 weeks ago, and there's still some outcry about it.
Yes.
And there happens to be a Long Hill burial ground in Shelton.
Calm down. It has nothing to do with you. And Two Roads Brewing
is making a donation of, I believe, $1 for every so many dollars spent. That'll go towards the Stratford Library, which is a great thing.
Cool. Oh,
yes. But some people are going to misconstrue that as...
And think there's going to be some beer at the library?
Exactly.
If only.
Can you check out? You check out a mug and...
There you go. You got to return it, though.
I'll take the late fee.
And tell us about this one, Doug.
STEM night was done with the Middlebrook School Observatory in Trumbull, and it was a big success, where the kids all came in they had lecturers, they looked at the stars through the observatory.
Very cute.
And that's it.
And what's this one about?
Oh, this is the etiquette column. And the complaint is about the parents you're seeing at the FCAC thing, parents screaming about their kids not getting playtime and yelling at the coaches and making a spectacle of themselves. So
always fun.
We have a sportsmanship award for those characters.
And we were looking at this one. Tell us about this.
Joe's column, Joe Pisani, he was talking about a story he read where somebody stole a sign from 30 years ago. I don't know what the sign was. And he returned it to the police station along with, I believe, a check, money order for $50 or something, and apologize for it.
Wow.
So Joe said, wow, that we ought to make that guy run for president.
Yeah, that's very honest. Jeez. For a second, I thought that was the Hamburglar, but. All right. Well, Doug, as always, thanks so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us this week.
Thanks,
Love
Doug.
to look at your cartoons. And Josh, we're going to wrap things up on this week's CT Polls.
Yes, well.
Next week, of course, we'll be talking about
We'll talk
the primary
primaries,
results.
yes, which will be maybe exciting, or if you read that Q poll, not exciting at all.
All right.
You know, we got to decide. Are you going to vote for Trump or Hillary in November?
That's right. Make sure you get out there and
hashtag
vote
Hill
on
yes.
Tuesday. All
All
right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. You could watch us on demand later. Have a great week.